Now we're going to bring Stella Young up to the stage, who is a self-described inspiration boner killer. I will let her explain to you all what that means. So all the way from Malvern, Australia, Stella Young.
I must explain the inspiration boner killer tag. When I was making new business cards for my trip to the States, and I thought, oh God, what am I going to call myself? So I made two sets of business cards, one that was quite serious that said writer, comedian, activist, and the other one says inspiration boner killer, which I came up with, unfortunately, after I did a TED talk on inspiration porn and the objectification of people with disabilities. I really wish I'd come up with it before, because I could have actually, done it under a pseudonym as the inspiration boner killer. It was, anyway, I didn't come up with it until afterwards, so, no. I just realised I've come up with my handbag. I guess that's in case it goes terribly wrong. I have to fuck off out of here really quickly. Sorry about that. Let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope it all stays on track. Now, thank you so much for having me here. I love Austin. Been here for a couple of days. We've been in New York City. We've been in Washington, D.C. It's amazing. I love it all. And thank you so much to you guys for coming out tonight. Now, do we have any non-disabled people in the audience? Couple? Can I have a show of hands? People without disabilities is what I'm talking about.
Well,
Is there a few?
we're temporarily.
Temporarily. Yes, okay, so you two in the front here, non-disabled? Okay, right. Now, is this your carer with you?
Is she?
Yeah. Yeah, do you know, what's her name?
Hers? It's a good question.
Would you mind me asking what's wrong with it?
This is a big question.
Was she born that way, or was it some kind of a terrible accident? You carers are usually so keen to speak for us. What is going on? I don't understand. Well, anyway, thank you. Thank you for bringing her on her outing tonight. It's good of you. Bless you. Bless you. I think we should give them a special round of applause. They've made an extra effect. What are you doing taking about? It's not really about you, is it? But seriously, thank you for coming out. My set usually needs to come with a little bit of a language warning. But I really like to say the C word a lot. I know it makes people really uncomfortable. It's a little bit un-PC, but I just really like the word cripple. I really do. And it does make people uncomfortable. See, you're down the front here, look at you. You're like, God. I should have just said cunt. Seriously, it makes people so uncomfortable. But and cripple, it does make people uncomfortable. It's not very PC, but I'm frankly not a fan of what we've tried to replace cripple with. Special needs. It's one example, isn't it? Special needs, handicapped, handicapable. For that brief period in the 90s, we were handicapable, weren't we? Disabled, differently abled, disabled. It's a doozy, isn't it? Yeah. And look at physically challenged. Special needs, actually, I think is one of my favourites. If there's anything that I have learned from 32 years of being a cripple, it's that special is actually just a code word for shit. Special buses, shit. Special schools, shit. Special scissors, those were particularly shit. Seriously, I don't know what they thought I was going to do if I'd gotten my little cripple hands on the normal kid scissors. I wasn't going to fucking run with them, was I? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I think we've gone too far. We've tried to be too PC. You know, do you guys have pipe cleaners here in America? Pipe cleaners?
Yeah.
Are they still called pipe cleaners here? Because in Australia, pipe cleaners are no longer called pipe cleaners. Does anyone know what they're called now? Yeah, pipe cleaners are now called chenille stems. Chenille stems. Isn't it great? I think it sounds like a great name for a drag queen florist. Good afternoon, chenille stems speaking. How Seriously, chenille stems. And do you know why they call them chenille stems? Because apparently calling them pipe cleaners encourages little children to become smokers. Yeah. Who knew that pipe cleaners were for fucking pipes? Nobody even know that? I just thought they were invented for shitty craft projects. Ridiculous. I asked my friend's a primary school teacher, what you'd call an elementary school teacher. And I asked him if he knew about the chenille stems business. And he said that he did, and he said that he is actually a teacher at his primary school where he teaches who won't use the term bullet points, like the ones that you use in a written document, because that subconsciously encourages violence. Yeah. You know what subconsciously encourages violence? Yeah, fucking dickheads like that. Yeah. He also said that there's a policy in his school, like an actual written policy, that they're not allowed to call dice, they have to call them number cubes, because dice is what they call them in casinos, and that encourages gambling.
Oh my god.
I know. And do you guys know why they call them dice in casinos? It's actually a really interesting story. Yeah. It's because that's what they're fucking called! Hell, it's ridiculous. I think we've gone far too far. You know, with the language and the PC business, I just think it's a bit ridiculous. But I'm really loving learning in America about the differences between America and Australia. Do you guys have riding for the disabled here?
Riding?
Riding, like horses.
Yeah.
You guys have that? Yeah. Is it compulsory? Right, so it's compulsory in Australia. Yeah. Yeah, I know. So, you know, like in grade 2 when all of the other kids are getting their pen licenses, yeah, all the disabled kids are being carted off to farms and plonked on horses against our will. It's just how it goes. And I've got a condition where my bones break easily. Like it's got a long Latin name, which roughly translated means skeletal integrity of a pavlova. Yeah. You don't know what a pavlova is, do you? What? Oh. A horse? No. A horse breed. No, if I had the skeletal integrity of any kind of horse breed, it's not quite a cookie. It's a dessert. It's a dessert that's made with meringue and cream, essentially. Like it'll fall over if you breathe on it wrong. It's like a I don't know. Oh god, I need to change this joke for American audiences. Skeletal integrity of a poorly made souffle. But anyway, my bones break easily. If I fall off a horse, it's not a fucking good idea. Like it's just not. So anyway, I was convinced though to go to riding for disabled. I thought it's going to be all right. It's going to be fine. Maybe it'll be like in the Saddle Club books. Do you have the Saddle Club books? Yeah. Maybe it'll be like in those books, and there'll be other girls who wear matching outfits, and there'll be boys with like floppy, lovely, shiny hair, and we can have crushes on those boys. And I thought it's going to be all right. It's going to be fun. It's going to be like Saddle Club. Yeah, let me give you the tip. Riding for disabled, fucking nothing like Saddle Club. Yeah, nothing like it. There were no other girls with whom to match outfits. Yeah, there were no boys on whom to have crushes. There were no other kids at Riding for the Disabled. Yeah, I grew up in a very small country town. In hindsight, I think that the stall branch of Riding for the Disabled was probably set up especially for me. Yeah, it was just me and a bunch of keen as mustard volunteers. Yeah, I think before I came along, they were just fashioning little practice cripples out of sticks and bits of cloth and like taping them onto the horse. Ridiculous. By the time I came along, seriously, they were so glad to have a cripple who could actually talk. They didn't give a shit that I was screaming, I'm not getting on that horse! Ridiculous. Seriously, I'm not a very sporty person. Seriously, I'm not. But I did go to the Paralympics. I went to the Paralympics in London. in 2012, and that was great. I loved being at the Paralympics, you know. And I had to, you know, before I went, I had to do some research. I had to learn about like this thing. What's it called? Sport. That's it. So I had to learn a bit about sport, and I knew very little about it. And so I was watching the Olympics in the lead up to the Paralympics, thinking I could learn something. But every time I turned it on, the race walking was on. You know the race walking? That one that looks like they're all busting to get to the same toilet? It's ridiculous. The race walking is stupid. I don't really get walking. I think it's frankly overrated. Cautionary tale, I don't know why you chumps do it. A few smart ones in tonight, but the rest of you, seriously, get your act together. So I went to the Paralympics, and one of the really interesting things that happened while I was at the Paralympics was that Oscar Pistorius, he protested when he lost a race. I just heard a sharp instinct of breath. Oscar Pistorius jokes, stay with me. It's all right. It's all right. We're going to get through it. We'll be fine. But he protested when he, you know, lost a race to another athlete, you know, a better one. And he said that his legs were too long, and people were really surprised. You know, they were surprised that he protested. It's like people think that the real Olympics is about winning, but the Paralympics is just about having a go. Yeah, not so much, not so much. So people were very surprised when Oscar cracked the shits. Yeah, not at all surprising to me, because, you know, disabled people can be assholes just like everybody else. You know, turns out some of them are murderous assholes. Who knew? Too soon? A little bit, sorry. It's okay, we're 17 hours ahead in Australia. Makes all the difference. But, you know, one of the best things about being in London for the Games was that every time I got in a cab or went to the shop, people would ask me what sport I played. Yeah. That is not a question I get very often. Yeah. I had a great time. I would tell them that I did the shot put. I got the physique for it. Or I'd tell them that I did wheelchair synchronised swimming. Yeah, that's a bit of a demo, a little bit of... Seriously, I did this back to so many London cabs, I came home with a sporting injury. It was brilliant, it was great. Actually, one of the things that I find the most frustrating about being a person with a disability is people asking me if I need help. You know, all the fucking time. All the time. I'll be at an ATM and someone will come up and say, can I help you with something? It's like, well, it depends, doesn't it? Do you want to make a deposit? Sure. Well, you know, I was at the airport recently, I was reading a book. This woman came up and she stood there staring at me for ages. And I finally made eye contact with her and she said, can I help you with something? Okay, look, I was reading 50 Shades of Grey, and some of that shit might require some second party assistance. Yeah. Or third or fourth party assistance. Emphasis on party. But reading a book, like, no. Generally, I'm pretty fine with that, don't need any help. And you know, usually when people ask me if I need help, I'm pretty polite. I just, you know, if I'm fine, I just say, no, I'm fine, thanks, and send them on their way. But there was one day recently where I had just had enough. Too many people had got in my face asking me if I needed help. As New Zealand band Flight of the Conchords describes it, that week there had just been too many dicks on my dance floor. Seriously, too many dicks on my dance floor. And this woman came up to me, I was listening to some music, you know, with my earphones in, trying to tune out this terrible week, listening to a bit of Miley Cyrus, you know, because I am a fucking wrecking ball. And this woman kind of loomed into my field of vision. And I didn't hear what she said, so I took out my earphones and I said, oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. And she said, can I help you with something? Now look, this woman was quite elderly, so I thought, you know, I should probably go easy on her. So I said, actually, you can help me with something. all day I have just had this really itchy ass. All day. And I just need a really good scratch. That would actually be super helpful. If you could just reach down there and give it a good scratch for me, that would be really awesome. Yeah. So she did. Yeah. I thanked her and said, you know what? Yeah. I find it baffling. The conversations that I have with people all the time, and you know, these are common stories. A lot of people with disabilities tell me the same thing. But you know, I was on a Melbourne train once, and this woman came up to me and she said, "Excuse me, do you have a vagina?" Like what? Like a spare one? Yeah, like I do, but I left it in the glove box in the car. What the hell are you supposed to say to that? Do you have a vagina? So I said the only thing I could really. I said, well, no. But there is a giant asshole standing right in front of me. I do. Seriously, people are ridiculous. But the best conversations that I ever had really are with children. I used to work at Melbourne Museum, and I had conversations with children every day. And I got the job there because I'm actually a very lazy comedian, and I could just have these kids write my jokes for me. I'll give you a couple of examples. You know, like the little kid who looked up at his mum and said, "Mum, why is that little man wearing a dress?" Excellent question. Or the little girl who said, "Where's the rest of your body?" Yeah. Or my personal favourite, a young man who looked very intently at me and said, "Are you imaginary?" I loved that. I loved that this kid had he'd heard about imaginary friends. His mates in kindergarten. And he spots me working at the museum and he's like, that's what those guys look like. Right. God, I think we should just let kids go. I don't think we should teach them anything about disability because it is an absolute minefield for material. I don't want kids to be taught to be appropriate. Look at that. It's a long way. It's a long way from Australia to America. Don't really like 35 hours in transit. It's not fun. And I have so much trouble with airport security. And it's so much tighter in America than it is in Australia. And I thought it was pretty intense in Australia. I have a bit of trouble with airport security. I think it's probably because of my undeniable Middle Eastern appearance or something. I don't know. But for the benefit of anyone who has a vision impairment, I'm a pale, freckly redhead. Yes. That joke doesn't work so well with every audience. Works very well with Middle Eastern audiences though. Very, very well. Love it. But I always have this trouble getting through airport security. And one of the times I flew recently for work in Australia, I was being wheeled onto the plane and I always take the controller off my chair. Do you guys do that? You take the controller off so that the airlines can't damage it? Yeah, it's really quite sensible. And you know, I don't like the thought of a pair of 35-year-old aeroplane engineers with the brains of 6-year-old boys taking it for a spin. You know, I've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That shit's not gonna fly. Seriously. But recently I was being wheeled onto a plane and I had the controller in my lap and a security guard stepped out in front of me and said, "Ma'am, you can't take that on board." And I said, "Oh no, it's just a part of my chair, it's just, you know, it's not dangerous, it's not connected to the battery." And he said, "Not dangerous? Not dangerous? Man, you could hit someone over the head with that and kill them instantly." I could. And then they could wipe and tap me on the kneecaps and break both my legs. Yeah, seriously, I feel like it's important to point out at this point that appearances are not always deceiving. Yeah, I'm not stronger than I look. Seriously. There is no inner ninja. But it did get me thinking, though, about what it would take for me to hijack a plane. And I think that for a start,